All right, we'll get things kicked off here. Hope everyone's having a good Wednesday. So far, thanks for joining our webinar today on the GFK Etilize data integrations that we're doing. We've got a special guest joining us today. We have Austin Rose from our team. He's our head of business development. He'll be discussing the different GFK Etilize plans, the options available there, and then we'll be going through each plan and showcasing the data differences between them. And then once we're through that, I'll be going over how we can actually set up these integrations on your account. And then as always, we'll have an open session at the end of this so you can ask any questions related to GFK Etilize or anything about Flxpoint that you may have questions on. And again, anytime through this, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or the Q&A box there, and we will answer those as we can. So we'll get things started off here. Austin, are you there?
Yeah, hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Perfect. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into the data side of things. And thanks for having me, Justin. So we partner with GFK Etilize, got a really good relationship with them. In a nutshell, if you're unaware of who GFK Etilize is, they are a rich content data provider. We mainly service our mutual customers that are in the electronic space. Obviously, a lot of people out there, if you are selling the electronic space using the likes of a Synnex, a D&H, an Ingram Micro, a Tech Data, we know, out of the interim, you don't get the best data that's there. So we like to partner with, a company that could help supplement that, since we do help out from a data perspective. So with GFK Etilize, we actually have 3 different plans that we have worked together with them on, all depending on the type of package that makes sense for you and your website or wherever you're selling. The 3 different plans are our Spec Basics, our Spec Flex, and then our Specs Flex Plus Images. So we're going to go through a handful of that data, but really to set the scene, Justin, let's go back to the Synnex supplier profile on Inventory Source site. And as you can see here, we have an example of honestly just not great data from Synnex general feed in their catalog. A lot of the times the images is missing. You can see that the description is very minimal. Sometimes the description is either not there or is just a replicated title. You can obviously see the title is not the best. No length, no width, no height, a general category for both the parent and the child category, no attributes. So really there's really not much to go off of here besides a SKU, an MPN, and a title. This one doesn't even have the UPC either, and the cost obviously is added as well. So obviously right when you get set up with the distributor like this isn't going to work for most people on their website to have a good, enjoyable experience for their customers. So that's where we come into play, and you could set up with Etilize, and obviously anybody that wants to get set up with Etilize, we'll talk a little bit more about the next steps once we go through the data, but this is the general data you get from a likes of an electronic distributor out there. So let's go ahead and say that you guys set up with GFK Etilize and we're on the Specs Basic. So he's going to pop over to Flxpoint. Once we integrate Flxpoint and get that up and going for your Etilize integration, and let's say Synnex, for example, you can see here that we've done a little bit of a better job, right? There is a better, more descriptive, easy to read title for this specific product. We've got the right categories. We got the right SKU. We got a pretty good description, nothing too crazy, but a pretty good one. We actually have an image for this product. Again, you're going to see a lot of either no images on the Synnex catalog or D&H catalog, Ingram catalog. Sometimes there is an image, and sometimes the image is literally just the brand. It's like HP or Lenovo. It's just the logo. So here we actually know and see that this is an actual product and an all-in-one computer here. And on top of that, with the Spec Basics, you can see we've got about 9, sometimes we get about 10 attributes. So you can leverage, color, form factor, limited quantity, manufacturer, all these different parts to make your listing look better on, your Shopify site, your BigCommerce site, wherever you're selling, and we've got hooked up. So that's the good thing about this. This is the Spec Basics. This is the beginning plan where you get a good title, good description, an image, and some attributes, and usually a better category as well. So that's our Spec Basics. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the same exact example, the same product, but we're going to talk about the Specs Flex. And as you can see here right out of the gate, we have a good title, but we have a much better description. We've got bullet points, outlining where all of this, this product is compatible in all these different ways, all the different attributes to it, not just in the attributes section, but in the description. So you can see a much better description to see. Still have the one image, which, for most people might be all right. But then you can see here, we got 35 different attributes. I mean, this is awesome because people need to know these specific things when they're making a buying decision on electronics. I mean, how many times have you been selling something and like, I need to know specifically what this certain computer or USB cord or mouse is compatible with, for your systems that you already have. So this is the next up step. It's called Specs Flex. So we just showed the basic specs basics. This is the Specs Flex. And then we're now going to jump to the Specs Flex plus images. So this is pretty much the best tier, data plan that we have with GFK Etilize, and coming into our Flxpoint app. And as you can see, same title, really good description, a bunch of attributes. But the big thing here is look at all these images, right? I can see all of the different ways I can look at this computer or monitor system that I want to buy, and push over to, again, my website. Right here, we've got 14 images. We can support up to, I think, a handful of images on Flxpoint. And these guys provide some really good content to push over to the site. So Specs Flex is the same amount of data. Specs Flex plus images is the same amount of data as well. However, a more curated version of images. And that's key for a lot of people selling in the electronics space. So those are the three different categories that we have there. Again, you can try to get away with the basic, data you get from your distributor catalog. You can get on Specs Basic, good title, pretty good description, one image, 10 attributes. Specs Flex, good title, really good description, 1-2 images at the most, and then usually around 35 attributes. And then the Specs Flex plus images is the top tier one with all of these image added with all the different data points that you have here. So that's our Etilize packages that we have with GFK. Go ahead, Justin.
Austin, yeah, just one more thing on the images, which I'll touch on this a bit later too, but they also provide options in our integration for choosing what resolution of images you want. So they have a lot of good high quality images as well through all these integrations. So if that's something you need, depending on your website and the optimization on it, depending on what resolution you need, there are some options through all this as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We've seen that a handful of times as well, and we've really helped out from that perspective. The last thing with GFK Etilize and working with Flxpoint, you do need to have a package with GFK Etilize. It's kind of separate from us, right? So if you're paying for our app, that doesn't mean you get access to Etilize for free. You have to go work with Etilize and get on one of their plans to get the specific package that you want. Again, basic, Flex, or Flex plus images. What's great is we have a really good relationship with their team, their devs, their sales team, their QA team, their support team. Really good group of people over at GFK Etilize. We're more than happy to loop one of their contacts in with you on an email or a phone call. They're super great at getting back to everybody and getting you on the right plan. So if anybody's interested in GFK Etilize and Specs, or Specs Flex plus images, just go ahead and either email your support rep, your sales rep, or info@flxpoint.com. More than happy to loop them in and get you started on this data package. And I think that's about everything for me, Justin. Anything else? I believe we want to start looking at how the setup goes for this.
Yeah, I'll walk through the setup. We did have one question come in that I want to touch on, which I'll touch on this a bit more during the integration, but someone asked, will this be able to sync up with any special pricing we have with these distributors? Or will only be able to list the default pricing? That's a really good question. So how we set this up with Etilize is this is strictly a data connection. So we're getting the titles, descriptions, everything else like that. That's going to be set up as your get inventory primary on Flxpoint. And if you do have specific pricing and a specific quantity file from these suppliers, we'll actually set that up as a get inventory secondary. So that way we're getting your personal feed with your quantities and pricing, and then supplementing that with this expanded Etilize data. Regardless of which Etilize plan you choose, we'll always be able to set that up where you get the Etilize data, and then we plug in your specific pricing and quantity values via secondary integration. So that way you have everything all in one place and handled all in the same products.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Really to look at it from a macro level, you've got your distributors all hooked in as the sources, and you've got all the operations going, right? Getting your inventory, getting your pricing, getting the catalog, getting or pushing back purchase orders, getting back shipment tracking, all the operations needed and supported in Flxpoint. Etilize is like a specific data source integration for us. So we're leveraging our catalog building rules and wizard to combine, these overlapping products per se from Synnex and Etilize, but we're really just supplementing, your Synnex catalog, D&H catalog, your main catalog of all these overlapping products with this rich content. So it's setting it up as a source. And as Justin said, you'll still be getting your specific pricing structure, the products that you have access to, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Also, one other question I think we get sometimes on this is, does Etilize only work with or integration only support electronic suppliers? Or are there any suppliers outside of that niche that might be able to support this?
Yeah, so there are some suppliers and distributors out there that they work with. They work with a lot of different vendors. I think what we just normally see are electronic sellers, specifically, the Ingram Micro, Synnex, D&H, Tech Data, ASIs of the world, and probably a handful of others. I know they work with SP Richards, and we have somewhat of an integration with SP Richards. That's another distributor, but they are starting to get into more markets other than electronics. I believe, the janitorial side, some of like the home goods side, but it's an ever evolving thing with GFK Etilize. I believe they're just trying to get into more and more markets, and that'd be a great question to ask with them. The best part about being on Flxpoint rather than using GFK Etilize with inventory source is with Flxpoint we can now start leveraging the data integrations and building integrations for those suppliers that inventory source might not support, but you use them for fulfillment, and Etilize has their data. It's a very easy kind of plug and play with us and Etilize in Flxpoint more so than inventory source.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Are you going to hang out here for the rest of it in case any other questions pop up?
Yeah, I want to learn some more.
Awesome.
I'm
cool.
ready to see you set this all up. But obviously I'll stick around for any questions. I might be on the business side.
Perfect. Awesome. And again, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to post them in the chat or in the Q&A portion, and I'll get to them as I can. So, all right, as Austin said, the first step is going to be reaching out to your sales rep or your implementation manager here at Flxpoint to get the talks going with Etilize or GFK Etilize if you haven't already. And so that'll be the big first step, is getting that account set up and determining which plan is best for you. And then once you have all that set up, you'll need to reach back out to our support team. Let them know, hey, I'd signed up for this Etilize plan. They're going to ask you for your account number just so we can verify that with Etilize, just to make sure everything's all good to go. Once they confirm that, our support team will just confirm what suppliers you're looking to use with Etilize. And what will happen is they'll activate the Etilize integration on your account. So if you don't already have it set up, you can't just go add it just for some security purposes and verification. But our team will go ahead and allow the integration to be created on your account once they verify that with you. And once they do that, it's as simple as just adding any other source. So you'll come in here, you'll choose a source type. We'll call it just data source, and we'll name this. I'll just go ahead and use Synnex for our example. We'll do Synnex Etilize. And we'll do specs flex plus images on this one. And then, as I said, the get inventory primary is going to be the main integration for getting the Etilize data. So once our team sets up the integration for you and allows you to set it up, you'll see the Etilize package here set up under custom integrations. So we'll choose the Etilize specs flex with images add-on. We'll go to the next step here, and here's where you can choose a supplier that you're working with. So these are all the currently built out ones that we have. We'll select Synnex, and we do have an option here. As I was talking about the image sizes, we have an option here to import the primary image as a thumbnail size. This is especially useful if you're using a sales platform that maybe doesn't have any built-in image optimization. So a lot of times you'll want to have a thumbnail image for loading speeds on your site. So we do have an option here that if your platform doesn't support that automatically, we can toggle this on, and the first primary image that gets imported is going to be a thumbnail size image. And then for the rest of the image, we do have a preferred image resolution here that you can select. So there are many options here. Depending on your needs or however you'd like to present these items. 3000 by 3000 image is probably pretty huge. It's there if you need it. We recommend starting with 900 by 900. It's a good middle of the road size. I do believe that is probably the one that has the most images through it, through all the Etilize packages as well. So it's good to start there. And if we need to make any adjustments later on, we definitely can always do that. And then also, if you're using SKU prefixes, we can tie that in here as well. Maybe you're coming over from an inventory source integration and already have prefixes set up. We can apply that. Or maybe you already have a custom prefix on your website. We can choose that and set that here so everything lines up. And then once we set that up, we already have a default mapping template created for these with all of the fields mapped out appropriately. But you can always modify these if you need to for whatever reason. Typically for these, the default is just fine. But again, for whatever reason, if you need to customize it, it's the whole point of Flxpoint. We'll allow you to do that if you need to. But we'll leave this as the default. And we'll go ahead and save this integration. And then going back to the original question we had, what if you do have your own pricing that you want to import into this to supplement that data so you have your own pricing and quantities available. So as I said, the primary one is just the data integration. Even if you don't have your own pricing, we still need to set up the secondary integration to get the quantity values in from your supplier. Almost all the suppliers have an FTP file for pricing and quantity. So that'll be what is used on this integration, depending on which one it is. But again, here, we'll create a new integration, and this will be a CSV XLS file integration. And here you would just plug in that FTP server that we're going to be reading that file from. So let's just choose this FTP server for now. And then you'll be plugging in the file name for that quantity and price file. If it is in a subdirectory on that file, we'll plug that in there. Filling all this out, if it has headers, just kind of our typical integration setups here. If you're unsure of this, check one of my past webinars on sources. We went a lot more in depth on this here with all of our settings that we can set up for it. And then we'll need to set up a mapping template for that file. And this file can be as simple as having SKU and quantity and cost on it. You can map these other fields if you need to, but we can get away with the bare minimum for this to run properly of just having SKU, cost, and quantity mapped from that file. So that way it's going to bring in your specific product cost. If you have any deals with these suppliers or maybe getting a discount on items, we'll bring that in, and then also bring in the quantity for these items available to make sure you're listing items that you can sell and not having any out of stock sales. Any questions on this? It's a pretty simple setup, especially with it being pre-built on the data side. And a lot of times, even if you aren't using inventory source directly, we can plug in your feed details through inventory source and automatically generate and export as well if you need that for the inventory secondary. Otherwise, going directly to that supplier FTP is usually going to be the way to go to bring in your specific cost and quantity there. But definitely, if there's any questions so far, please post those in the chat here, and we'll answer those for you. We'll give everyone a few minutes to type those out.
Yeah, and while we got people jumping in for questions, another thing that I noticed, and I hit on it a little bit, but when I kind of reiterate is, whenever Justin went in and showed you, the different suppliers that you can select for the data that we're bringing in, right? So if this get inventory primary is going to be for Synnex with the Etilize plus images, that's great. We'll add in another one, and we'll do the same thing for SP Richards. We'll do the same thing for D&H. But obviously, GFK Etilize doesn't work with just these suppliers. They work with a handful of other distributors and suppliers out there. The cool thing about Flxpoint having our own dev team is we're pretty well versed in this source integration side, integrating suppliers, integrating distributors, integrating more suppliers from the GFK Etilize. We already went through all the checks and balances with the Etilize team to fully understand their files and set up their tech side of things, that it would be pretty simple for us, or at least not very time consuming, to add in more suppliers that you utilize through GFK Etilize. So obviously make sure to reach out to your implementation specialists, our support team, your sales rep, whoever it is, to talk more about that. But we're pretty well versed in adding more suppliers if need be. So don't think you're just in this bucket.
Yep, thanks for touching on that, Austin. I was meaning to as well. Yeah. So if there's a supplier on here that GFK Etilize works with and you don't see it, all you have to do is ask and we'll evaluate it. And usually these are pretty easy add-on. From what I remember, so I don't foresee any major issues with that. But yeah, definitely reach out if you see a supplier that's not supported, and we can look at getting that going for you. All right, so I'm not seeing any more questions on GFK Etilize. So now I'll open it up. If anyone has any specific, just general Flxpoint questions on any other aspects of the platform, definitely happy to answer any of those or dive anything else other than GFK Etilize. All right, while everyone's typing there, I just want to let everyone know, again, these webinar recordings get posted by the end of the week to our YouTube page. You can also view the upcoming webinars. So just to recap, we've got category mapping. Some in-depth overview of category mapping is coming up next week. And then the following week, we'll be going into product customizations on how to do bulk customization uploads, do one-off customizations on products, and go through the process on setting that up. Because a lot of times, again, like we see here, if it's not an Etilize supported supplier, they might not have the best data, and you'll want to update that. So there's a good way we can do that in bulk with different spreadsheets if you have a team working on revamping data and things like that. So we'll be diving more in depth on that on the 23rd. And then again, next week is category mapping on June 16th.
And we actually ended up, so YouTube is a great way of finding past videos. And then obviously if you have that landing page of seeing the next ones up and registering, obviously look out on your email as well on every Monday. But at the bottom, the footer of the Flxpoint website, you'll actually see webinars section, and that's where you can click on that to see the past ones and the upcoming ones as well. We added that to the footer for you guys.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions come in. Well, I appreciate everyone joining today. I guess we'll end this a little early, that everyone get a little bit of their lunchtime back. And yeah, I appreciate everyone joining today. Be on the lookout by the end of this week for this recording. And again, if you have any other questions, definitely reach out to support at Flxpoint, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have or direct you to the right location. Again, Austin, thanks again for helping out today. Really appreciate you jumping in here and explaining the differences on those plans.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Justin. Everyone have a good one.
All right. You all have a good day. Thanks.
See ya.